Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the shadow of the serene Blue Ridge Mountains, nestled in a quiet Virginia town named Waverly, life ambled at a predictably gentle pace. This quaint community, with its rolling hills and picturesque landscapes, seemed, on the surface, to be an idyllic place to live. Yet, beneath the tranquil facade lay a dark undercurrent of tension and secrets that would soon be unearthed. On an unremarkable September morning in 1995, the peace was shattered when a single phone call shattered the silence, the kind of call that sends tremors through an entire community. 10-year-old Emily Carter did not return home after visiting a friend, a routine that had rarely caused concern in this tightly knit neighborhood. The sun hung low in the sky as search efforts unfolded, framing the atmosphere with an unsettling haze. As the day turned to dusk, the air thickened with dread. Volunteers rallied, canvassing the tree-lined streets and lush parks, knocking on doors, hoping for any sign that the young girl was safe. The town buzzed with whispered fears and speculative murmurs. What could have happened? Parents clasped their children a little tighter, while others locked their doors earlier than usual. By nightfall, the buzz had morphed into an oppressive silence, broken only by the flicker of flashlights piercing through the darkness. Beneath the canopy of a starless sky, a police officer stood resolutely at the head of the investigation, unaware that this would be a case that would haunt him for decades to come. The victim. Emily Carter was a child of sunshine, with an infectious laugh that danced through the halls of Waverly Elementary School. She had a warmth about her that drew friends close and kept her family bound in tenderness. Bright-eyed and curious, Emily delighted in the simple wonders of childhood, climbing trees, chasing fireflies, and racing her bike down the winding streets of her neighborhood. Born in 1985, the youngest of 3 siblings, Emily fit perfectly into her family's fabric. Her older brother, Jake, often acted as her protector, while her sister, Sarah, was a confidante, sharing secrets in whispered tones beneath the covers at night. Friends remembered the girls playing with dolls in the backyard, their laughter rising up with the soft breeze. Emily's innocent charm had a way of illuminating even the cloudiest days. That fateful morning, Emily donned her favorite blue dress, adorned with white daisies, the fabric swaying lightly with each step, as she made her way to her friend's house, just a few blocks away. It was the rhythm of life. She had grown accustomed to freedom woven into the structure of their small town. But as shadows lengthened, worries began to fester. Emily was never late, never faltered in her routine. One is never late, never faltered in her routine. Each passing hour stripped the town of its tranquility, her absence becoming a heavy weight on the shoulders of those who knew her. A community known for its safety now held a collective breath, haunted by the thought of a little girl lost in the sprawling tapestry of the woods and streets she called home. The crime scene. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the mountains, the search for Emily Carter intensified. Hours turned into a seemingly endless loop of anxiety. And as darkness enveloped Waverly, the police rounded up their resources, determined to scour every corner of the town. It wasn't until the following morning, however, that reports of a break in the case would come. A group of volunteer searchers, combing through thick underbrush and rocky trails on the outskirts of town, stumbled across something, a scrap of fabric caught on a thorny vine. The townsfolk shuddered at the sight. It was a piece of Emily's blue dress. Police were alerted immediately, and the scene was methodically cordoned off, a cruel reminder of the uncertainty lurking just beneath the surface. The air buzzed with tension and unspoken dread as officers descended upon the area. The forest, a labyrinth of towering pines and tangled underbrush, became the focal point of an escalating investigation. Flashes from cameras illuminated the scene, revealing a series of footprints leading deeper into the woods, almost beckoning. Underneath a blanket of fallen leaves lay remnants of a children's backpack, pressed flat into the damp earth, asserting stark evidence. Emily had been here. Officers meticulously scoured the area, their hearts heavy with the weight of the unknown and the chilling reality that the child was likely no longer safe. As helicopters buzzed overhead, the unease grew, echoing in the hearts of the residents of Waverly. The beauty of their beloved town now cloaked in the chilling shadows of a crime unfolding in its midst. The early investigation. In the wake of the discovery, the Waverly Police Department shifted into high gear. Detective Mark Reynolds, a seasoned investigator with over a decade on the force, found himself at the heart of a storm. Known for his quiet determination and keen instincts, he meticulously organized a team to dive into every detail surrounding Emily's disappearance. The small town teemed with palpable tension and anxiety, yet the detectives found steadfast resolve in the support of the community. Citizens offered tips, insight into Emily's routine, and even home videos in hopes of providing investigators with a glimpse into her world. The department established a command post at the local park, stringing together missing person flyers with Emily's bright smile to hang on every lamppost and tree, their colors vivid against the drab backdrop of fear. Detective Reynolds focused first on gathering testimonies. Eyewitness accounts were recorded from Emily's friends, schoolmates, and neighbors. Each interview painted a more complex portrait of the missing girl. Children discussed her bright spirit, while adults revealed that recent tensions had surfaced in the community. Rumors of suspicious strangers and unsettling vehicles that had been spotted near the school. As days passed, a burgeoning network of volunteers formed to assist the investigation. The air thickened with desperate hope as the search expanded into neighboring counties. But beneath that surface lay the community's frustration began to simmer as rumors ran rampant about potential suspects and theories. Each iteration of a new suspect sparked further unease, pricing the detectives against the clock. Their collective failure now hinged on uncovering the truth before the light of Emily's case dimmed forever. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing hour, the investigation into Emily Carter's disappearance eked closer to a grim reality. The initial flurry of activity found its way into stagnation as dead ends piled up, frustrating Detective Reynolds and his team. Every tip that emerged from concerned citizens led to a series of unfulfilled promises, unraveling hopes and leaving a haunting silence in their wake. As the lead investigator, Reynolds held tightly to his resolve, but the weight of uncertainty bore down heavily on his shoulders. With a small team of deputies, he examined the contents of the materials collected from the woods, but came up empty-handed there, were no fingerprints, no evidence of foul play, and certainly no clues that could point to Emily's whereabouts. The absence of solid direction left them grasping at shadows. Frantic parents and neighbors began to question the department's ability to find Emily. Each inquiry scratched deeper into the psyche of an already tense community, leaving anger woven tightly with despair. "How could this happen? How could you not know?" became an echoing refrain in Waverly, thrusting shadows into the minds of anyone old enough to understand. In an attempt to revive the investigation, Reynolds revisited earlier leads, interviewing different individuals over again and hoping to unearth something he had missed. Yet, even the significant sightings-men in shiftless vehicles reported by residents led nowhere. The faces of hopeful volunteers began to show signs of weariness, reflecting the grim reality that hadn't just taken a child, it had ensnared an entire town in its despair. As the season shifted from summer to fall, the trees donned a cloak of deep amber and gold, marking not only the changing of the seasons, but a slow erosion of hope. Outside, Waverly appeared unchanged. Only the collective sighs of its people betrayed the truth of what lay hidden beneath the surface. A break in the case. The stifling air of October hung heavily over Waverly, interspersed with the sweet smell of wood smoke as families prepared for the approaching chill of winter. Just when the dark cloud of despair threatened to swallow the town whole, a flicker of hope emerged to break in Emily Carter's case that would reignite the dwindling flames of determination. It was a crisp Wednesday afternoon when Reynolds received a phone call that shattered the monotony of the previous weeks. A local hiker reported finding a small, unassuming object hidden beneath a pile of fallen leaves near a backcountry trail that wound through the woods, an object that matched the description of Emily's backpack. It was a glimmering shard amidst a sea of broken hopes, catching Reynolds off guard with renewed energy. Arriving at the site, a sense of anxiety and anticipation wound through the team. The backpack appeared worn, yet intact, slightly obscured by the earth's reclaimed embrace. Careful not to disturb potential evidence, Reynolds instructed forensics to take over. Within minutes, they unearthed not only the backpack, but also a series of small items: Emily's colorful hairbrush, a crumpled drawing of a cartoon cat, and a precious locket engraved with a small heart. The collection of these personal artifacts resurrected memories that had begun to fade. Emily was still a child, vibrant and filled with life, yet marooned in tragedy. As they documented each item, a forensic expert noted the strands of hair caught on the zipper, prompting hope mixed with dread. These could lead to an understanding of what transpired on that fateful day. In a race against time, Detective Reynolds pushed the forensic team for answers. Each piece they recovered felt like a stone lifted from the chest of a drowning man. As the investigation expanded with renewed vigor, an electric tension threaded through the atmosphere. The faintest glimmer of closure flickered on the horizon, but would it come too late for the missing girl and her family? The suspect. As the investigation gained momentum with the recent discoveries, Detective Mark Reynolds felt a shiver of urgency penetrate the frigid air. The items recovered from the woods began to shape a clearer picture, yet it was a chilling tip-off that pointed them towards a possible suspect, a man recently reported for suspicious behavior in Waverly. A haunting figure shrouded in shadows. Thomas Gentry, a middle-aged resident of the area, had long been viewed as an oddball by neighbors, an enigmatic presence in the community. He often spent his time wandering aimlessly through town, mumbling incoherently to himself. When Emily's disappearance had sparked a wave of fear, Memories of his erratic excursions emerged among the townsfolk. Reports of his carafe and park near parks, and school set off alarm bells in the minds of many. With a mounting sense of urgency, Reynolds and his team set out to build a profile on Gentry. Over the next few days, eyewitness accounts linked him to several locations frequented by Emily in the days preceding her disappearance. A cautious canvass of the area brought forth recollections of Emily being seen passing his home, voices hushed in fear. Those whispers echoed through the investigative walls, drawing in detectives like moths to a flame. A search of Gentry's property revealed an alarming collection of items. Children's toys, clothing seemingly from different families, and unsettling drawings, some eerily resembling the art Emily had in her backpack. Each unturned stone exposed deeper layers of defense mechanisms, camouflaging a chaotic and tragic reality. Reynolds felt that a confrontation with Gentry was imminent, an essential step towards unraveling the haunting web surrounding its center. The narrowing focus on Gentry thrust new life into the investigation, yet dread lingered. Would the man who had become the focus of suspicion yield the answers they sought, or was he merely a red herring in a case already mired in darkness? Every heartbeat echoed the urgency as Reynolds prepared for what lay ahead, a clash of hopes and frustrations that dictated the pace of the investigation. The trial. The air in the small courthouse was thick with anticipation as Emily Carter's case transitioned from the obscurity of investigation to the sharp light of a courtroom trial. What had begun as whispers in a quiet town now resonated with the heavy thud of justice seeking resolution. The gavel echoed through the chamber, signaling the beginning of a trial that had captivated Waverly and beyond. Thomas Gentry, the man accused of kidnapping Emily, sat before the judge, his expression unreadable, caught somewhere between defiance and resignation. The courtroom, filled with the tense murmurs of concerned citizens and media representatives, held an electric charge as the prosecution laid out its case. They presented the critical evidence, Emily's belongings found on Gentry's property, and witnesses who had placed him near her during her last known moments. Detective Reynolds sat in the back, his heart heavy yet hopeful, grappling with the weight of equitable justice. He remembered every detail of Emily's case, the pressure, the fears that had enveloped Waverly. He had come seeking closure not just for himself, but for the community that had rallied together, lifelines lit through the darkest of times. As the trial unfolded, Gentry's defense argued fervently against the claims, twisting narratives and casting doubt. They painted him as a misunderstood figure, merely living on the fringes, entangled in the hysteria that accompanied tragedy. It was a thin veil, susceptible to the rising tide of emotion that filled the room with each testimony. The proceedings pressed on, the impact of shared heartache, as solidified by each voice, amplified the urgency for clarity. Amelie sat with bated breath, countless eyes glistening with tears fueled by a mix of sorrow and longing. The entire community felt the weight of Emily's absence padded by the gravity of Justicia, waiting breath held within the courtroom. After days of deliberation, the jury retreated to contemplate the evidence, and the air thickened with uncertainty. Outside, as the season deepened, leaves turned brittle and fell, mirroring the burden the people of Waverly carried in their heart. With the fate of Thomas Gentry and Emily's memory hanging precariously in the balance, the outcome awaited the world beyond those courthouse walls. The aftermath. The morning after the verdict arrived, cloaked in a solemn quiet that enveloped Waverly. Detective Mark Reynolds stood beside the courthouse steps, eyes drawn to the horizon yet feeling anchored in the reality that had settled upon his town. The jury had found Thomas Gentry guilty of kidnapping, a conclusion grudgingly welcomed by many but laced with unresolved pain. He had been sentenced to decades in prison, yet for the families of Emily Carter and the entire community, the sentence served as merely a bandage over an open wound. The media storm that followed the trial overshadowed the town, invading the calm of Waverly like a tempest. News vans crowded the streets, and reporters flocked to the small community, desperate for interviews and insight, eager to paint the story into a narrative they believed would sell. Families erected memorials, their hearts both mourning and celebrating what they had endured. But amidst the collective relief that justice had been served, whispers of "what if" clung nervously to the edges of conversations, thickening the atmosphere with sorrow. As weeks passed, the vibrant laughter of children at the Waverly Elementary School stood in stark contrast to the memories of Emily's absence. Reynolds found solace in quietude, retreating to the edges of town where the trees whispered secrets to those willing to listen. He sought to understand how a child so full of light could so quickly be swallowed by darkness, how pain could pervade the innocence of childhood. In the aftermath of the trial, Reynolds also found himself grappling with the heavy burden of knowing that they had never found Emily's body. Her family remained haunted by questions that time could not wash away, dividing their grief into echoes of "if only." Only. The community rallied to support them, forming bonds forged in shared sorrow and a deeper understanding. Waverly began its slow crawl back towards normalcy. Yet the shadows of grief continued to linger, a testament to a life lost. In the beautiful Virginia fields that had once welcomed Emily's laughter, the spirit of the town resonated as it felt the delicate balance of light and darkness shaping its future. Hope remained a fragile whisper, held tightly in the hearts of those left behind. Reflection. As the years stretched onward, the landscape of Waverly changed. New families settled, and children grew into young adults. Yet the shadow of Emily Carter's case persisted in the hearts and minds of those who had lived through it. Detective Mark Reynolds often found himself wandering those familiar paths, reflecting on the threads of connection that still bound the town together in this tapestry of grief and resilience. One crisp autumn afternoon, he returned to the memorial established in Emily's honor, a collection of flowers and handmade items placed by the community. Kneeling before it, he allowed himself a moment of vulnerability, acknowledging the pain that had lingered far longer than could be healed by mere time. Faces of the family, friends, and community members who had shared their hope and despair flooded his memories. They had fought for closure together, stitching their lives back together through unbreakable bonds forged in heart. Yet, in the silence, Reynolds felt the stirrings of healing. The town's spirit reflected in the fallen leaves, vibrant in their transience. Emily's memory, though marked by loss, was bound in a collective strength rising from the shadow. The courage to face the unknown continued to live in Waverly, a testament to how a community could rise from tragedy, grown stronger together. In this solemn reflection, he envisioned a future where, though the echoes of Emily's laughter would forever be a haunting refrain, her spirit would inspire those left behind to cherish each moment of light.